Hi, I'm Eric Schumacher Rasmussen from Streaming Media, and I'm talking today with George Bokuchava, who is the CEO and president of Tulix. Hi, George. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Hello to everyone.
Yes, George, you recently wrote a piece for our executive predictions section in the January issue of the magazine, taking a look at your crystal ball, kind of identifying the trends that you see coming for the rest of the year. And you highlighted three trends in specific. So maybe we can start by talking about one of the first ones that you mentioned, which was the fact that consumers are consuming more content and a wider variety of content on more devices than ever, and they're not as concerned about whether or not it's high-end traditional broadcast type content, feature films. They're just as happy consuming content that comes from all sorts of production levels. Could you talk about that a little more and the effect it's having on our industry?
Yes, thank you. Definitely, I think this year will be a big year in a video industry or video consumption from the point of view, from multiple angle point of view. Specifically, we're talking about devices, new devices with new features, with new capabilities which no other devices had before, as well as new content and new type of content generation devices. So if we put that all together and we put on the top the current solutions, which again every year all the solutions are making much more easier for, on one hand, for people to generate new content, on the other hand, to distribute and monetize this content. This is like a video revolution. Obviously, YouTube did something like that 10 years ago or more, but now we're talking about the next step. Next step, when we're talking about user-generated content, which people will be able to upload directly from their video. They'll be able to upload from their drones. They'll be uploaded from so many new devices or even, cameras which are getting inexpensive, you can mount anywhere you want. So this on one hand. The other, if we go through the whole kind of line of video production, then editing. Editing tools are so inexpensive now. Not only sometimes they come for free, but there are a number of actually systems which are available online and they're free. By the way, Tulix were one of the plans, or one action items is to provide that service to a simple video editing, online video editing tool. We see a lot of inquiries regarding that, and this is one of the reasons why we decided to do that. So it's a kind of post-production. And then what's next? The next is a huge, actually, question. It's a very important, very big question, if you can say so. Even medium to small to medium-sized content owners, they had a pretty big challenges with the distribution. First, it's distribution. Even if we're talking about like face-based or like free-to-air channel-based, they had on one hand just with the distribution challenges, and the other one is challenge of monetization.
Right.
Specifically, is okay. You'll be able to distribute, but how are you going to monetize? One of the ways it's advertisement, and we can talk about that later, but just strict monetization via subscription. So before, the only way to get monetized, if you can say so, it was to put on a cable network. But then it's, companies that we've been waiting for 5, sometimes 10 years just to get to the cable, and sometimes they were not able to get at all. Sometimes by the time they try getting to the cable, their contract could be outdated, and we know such companies, and we felt very bad about that. Now, with the solution that we have, and Tulix actually participates in the core of that complete solution, we can enable almost any small to medium size content provider so that in a matter of weeks, they can start getting revenue without waiting for anyone. It just content and the rest of technology, and sometimes even a marketing piece that we can help out to our customers to make them to monetize. So we're talking about solutions which were just they just didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago, and now all these capabilities. Obviously, it's not just Tulix. Obviously, the other companies are also providing not only a solution but also very important components of all those solutions. But this is, I think, a year 2000 when all comes together, and actually pricing component, which is one of the critical, obviously, component of any solution, will allow to content owners to participate in that revolution, video revolution. And we're talking about a paid video content revolution.
Now, you actually hit on the second trend that you mentioned in your executive predictions piece. First one being viewers consuming content of all varieties on all manner of devices. Second being the low cost or even free production solutions to create this content. Talking about how you might monetize it via subscriptions, but when you get up to that higher end content, you also mentioned in your article that that content licensing remains a huge barrier to some of these larger companies who are trying to compete with some of the smaller companies that don't necessarily need to worry about those licensing fees because they're creating all this content in different ways. How do you see that playing out over the next year?
I had this example which I'd like to share with everyone. It's an example of digital TV in some third world countries. Even US, I think it was like 5 or 7 years ago when we switched completely to a digital TV on the cable side. But if we're talking about television or terrestrial free-to-air television in third world countries, here's what was going on. There was a very limited resources from frequencies point of view. When you have analog frequencies, you can have maybe 10, 20 channels in many countries. That's it. And when you have only that many channels, there were leaders, obviously, among those 10, 20 channels. Like one channel could occupy 70 or more percent of the whole viewership. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons was, actually, obviously, content was definitely better than someone else's among the competition. But the other reason why it was so huge or asymmetrical, let's say, distribution of viewership is just number of channels which technology was allowing to afford, let's say. Now, the minute those countries switch to a digital TV, which means automatically that you're getting much higher number of TV channels or capability to distribute those channels within the same range. Frequency range. Mm-hmm. So suddenly you're talking about not about 10, 20 channels, but you're talking 30, 50 channels. And by just adding this ability for people, for viewers actually to switch from one channel to another and spend maybe just a little bit here and there, suddenly rating from 70+% went to 30, below 30%. Mm-hmm. And the reason was not the quality of the content. Content actually increased of that particular channel. But just the competition with, if we can say, medium quality content, mm-hmm. just by participating in competing against eyes of the viewers, suddenly you see this distribution and actually those channels that never existed before online. I'm sorry, not online, but on as a terrestrial TV. They got a huge chunk of the total viewer hours of viewership. Sure. This is what I see will be happening here in US and probably all over the world. But in this particular case, what I'm talking about, obviously we'll see that the best content which is now on the market will continue to grow in absolute numbers, obviously. It will also, quality will be continue growing, but at the same time, I would expect that huge chunk of viewership, the same way how YouTube mm-hmm. got, will get those content owners who will suddenly will show up or appear on the market by in technology which will enable them to actually to be able to distribute and monetize, obviously. I would think that huge chunk of viewership or view hours will be taken by those content owners, which so far or before weren't just were not able to get out to the market. And in my opinion, the biggest reason why they were not able to, not because of the content. In many cases, content was excellent, but just technology wasn't there.
Right.
So just, and this is what will be a big change. And obviously, pricing to pay for that technology. I think it will be a huge benefit for everyone to get to take an advantage of prices and obviously technology to be able to do what they wanted to do always, to distribute their content and to monetize.
Right.
Now, and I'm sorry, one more thing. It's very interesting that on one hand, we're talking about 4K quality, we're talking about the best content, but what we see also that there are a lot of content which actually may not be the best quality content. When we're talking about even like wearable cameras or portable cameras, in some cases even phones, although now phones have like 4K cameras, with some of them. Very often we don't see the highest quality video. But what's the most important is actually those events which are recorded. So I would think that big chunk of this mid market, and what I'm calling mid market, not the top end content, not the free content, but this content that people are ready to pay. And actually from pricing point of view, if we're talking about on cable industry, people used to paying like, 60, 80, sometimes up to $300 maybe or more.
Right.
Here we're talking about some specific channels that viewers will be ready to pay for maybe $5, maybe $10, maybe $20 per month. But they'll be getting exactly what they want. If they want to watch something, it's what their interest is about, this is that we'll be paying for, but not for a lot of other content, which, again, in some cases still good for family or, but for the people who are into specific areas would be, in some cases could be sports, some cases could be, trucks, could be like outdoors, could be, a lot of different areas where people will be interested in. They'll be ready to pay just for those specific areas. And this is where Tulix and a lot of other probably companies could come in and help.
Sure. Well, let's close then by talking a little bit about what you see happening at Tulix over the course of 2016. How exactly is Tulix going to help with this huge explosion of content available to viewers?
Tulix is a very interesting company, if I can say. I'm sorry for talking about, our company by myself, but at the same time, it's a very interesting company because of it's a company which is actually self-funded. This is a company which it doesn't have a pressure of investors where they may have a little bit different, let's put it that way, focus other than customer-centric. For us, for Tulix, customer-centric approach is the most important approach. We are getting funded by our customers. Okay, so it's in our interest to provide the best service to all customers that we have. And this makes big difference. So in our case, what we did last year, to get prepared for the 2016, we made a huge investment in our infrastructure. We added I understand sometimes we're talking about like marketing term, but we added like 3 terabits of switching capabilities in our infrastructure. And actually, all the videos that we're serving based on our infrastructure. We're not renting space almost anywhere else. All the videos actually are coming from our, again, infrastructure, our data centers, and we're controlling all the pieces of the equipment, starting from our servers, actually routers, switches, servers, and we can track down any single viewer. So if they have any challenges, we can always troubleshoot.
Okay.
Sometimes still not fixable, but because of other reasons outside beyond our. But this is what we can do. Now, how are we ready? It's we are increasing our capacity. We've actually already increased our capacity, and we're finalizing actually during next 2 weeks. Now, from the software point of view, we've done already multiple different components, and what we're doing, it's actually we're combining all the solution into one single solution. Most of our customers actually are working with live channels or linear channels. We had separately most of our installations are a separate installation for video on demand, or so-called SVOD, subscription-based video on demand. And now we're combining all the solutions, so our customers now will be able to just couple of clicks, and they'll get a complete solution where they'll get not only applications, which we do on Roku, which will, for Roku, for Android devices, iOS devices, multiple other devices. Actually, Android devices are like a variety of them. You have to do for each of them, right? And but what will actually our big thing will be one unified interface, which will allow for our customers actually to manage the whole video, which will include again linear as well as video on demand from one single interface, and actually monetize it. And monetization, it's a matter like just coming up with a different packets. We have that many channels, or part of VOD goes to premium part, and so on and so on. Again, we've done that before, but was like single installations. But right now we're working on unified interface, which will allow us to make it easier for our customers to, again, distribute and monetize their channel, their content.
Well, those sound like great innovations, and Tulix is certainly a company to keep an eye on, and we're keeping an eye on Tulix and looking forward to what you're going to bring to the market in 2016. So thanks again, George.
Thank you.